Happy to have you here. How's everyone doing this morning? Good. Well, I'm glad to have you here. We are a spiritual-based community that comes together every Sunday morning here in this beloved sacred space known as Congregation Kol Ami, or Center for Spiritual Living here in West Hollywood. Just to remind you, to let you know, today is our second year anniversary being here in our home. So that warrants applause. So happy to be here today. So if you're here for the first time, we're a metaphysical-based New Thought community that comes together every Sunday morning, both live here in the room and in live stream. We'll say hello to those watching live stream today, as well as we're Facebook living, and are we also Instagram living, I believe, at the time. Facebook living today. So just know that we're saying hi to those out there and to the Mark Zuckerland, and happy to be sharing who and what we are out to the community, both in the room and beyond. As I said, we're a metaphysical-based community which we focus on believing that there's one indwelling presence, that it exists in and among all sentient beings, and that we both experience and express that through our thought, our beliefs, our actions, our reactions, and our interactions in life. In addition to that, we truly believe that there are spiritual laws in the universe that govern our existence and the way that life shows up for us, just as there are physical laws in the universe, such as gravity and any other physical law that didn't come to mind. The law of lack of memory, we'll call that. But there are spiritual laws in the universe, and we practice here primarily the teachings of the science of mind that was written through Dr. Ernest Holmes, which is a compilation of the great world's religions put into a format of a way that empowers the individual to find their personal self-empowerment through a spiritual awakening. We are a philosophy, a faith, the way of life is what the science of mind is known in today's vernacular. And what it all boils down to is we're here to shower you, the people, with love. Love not just in the human context where you feel good, but as love is defined as the self-givingness of spirit whose desire is to create more of itself out of itself, and the only way that it can do that is through you and through me. And so we're here to celebrate who you are, and as our beloved founding minister used to say each and every Sunday, we welcome one and we welcome all. So we welcome you and celebrate you for being here. We open our service every Sunday morning with a ritual. And that particular ritual, we light candles, and we also have some music that goes first along the way. Then our practitioner takes us on a journey, reading off the components of that ritual. And then we close that with spiritual mind treatment, which is our way of praying in an affirmative manner. And you get to sing along a little bit. So happy to share that today. Our practitioner of the day is a practitioner emeritus in our teaching, which means that she's been around for a long time and done a lot of work in healing others. And so it's my honor to welcome to the Bema Jody Carter. And our candle illuminator today is our beloved Miguel Palacios. Did I say that correctly? Yes, I did. I practiced that. And our musicians will take us along. Take a moment to reflect as you go through this, please.
This morning is called Calling in the Light. And today we perform this ceremony to promote the universal consciousness of life, which acknowledges all peoples and all faiths, all sentient beings, coming from the one great universal presence, which that is a presence. And we call that spirit. Well, does that happen every time? No. Okay. The purpose of this ritual is to draw into our gathering this morning a conscious awareness of our oneness and the qualities that we possess as complete expressions of the divine. As we feel the vibrations shift during this experience, may we become ever more aware of the light of life that exists in and through all of life, including you and me. Today we will use each of the letters of the word peace during this ritual to create an opportunity for each of us to embrace our light in a more expansive way today. Now, P stands for purposeful, which is defined as having or showing determination or resolve. May we each live our spiritual awakening with resolve as we play a role in the co-creation of our lives through the mental and emotional actions. For E, as Miguel lights the second candle for energy, in the book The Science of Mind, Dr. Holmes defines energy as a divine and unfailing attribute, and consequently, there is never any lack of it. So today, may we each commit to using our energy in productive and life-enhancing ways. A, this candle is illuminated for the word activation, which is defined as the action or process of making something active or operative. Today, may we each consciously make active our thoughts, actions, reactions, and interactions in and as life, reflecting the innate peace within all beings. C. Miguel now lights the fourth candle, the C standing for conscious. Synonyms for the word conscious are awake, aware, alert, responsive, sentient. In this moment, may we each tune into our ability to be aware and commit to living our life awake and alert to our ability to impact the world, and consciously invoke peace within each thought and action. E. We light this candle using E for the word evolution. Dr. Holmes defines evolution as the passing of spirit into form. Traditionally, it's defined as a process of gradual, peaceful, progressive change or development. So today, I affirm for all, as a result of finding personal self-empowerment through a spiritual awakening, progressive changes and development is manifesting in and as all, as spirit becomes form. So that's peace, purposeful energy activates conscious evolution. So we now move to the sixth candle. And as Miguel lights the sixth and final candle, that which is known as the healing candle, we ask you to take a moment and think of anyone you would like silently to put into the light of the healing flame, to experience the eternal and everlasting love of the divine.
I am love. I am peace. In my heart. I am free. I am spirit. I am soul. All together. We are whole. Calling in the light. Calling in the light. Calling in the light of love. Calling in the light. Calling in the light. Calling in the light of love. And so it is, and so it is, and so it is.
So, with a treatment at this point, a brief treatment, a quick encapsulation of the pre-service treatment, basically that no matter what things look like on the outside, no matter what looks like disappointing or other things, disappointing evolution of things, to remember that we are one. We are one within the wisdom and the love of God, and we do not prescribe how our treatment is going to turn off. We know the truth. We know that God is the wisdom, the love, the energy, and the peace of the universe. We watch it unfold, always in touch with our oneness with God, and praying for ourselves and for all those around us, for truth, for love, and for the great expression of this country, of our community, and of our neighbors and ourselves. And knowing that this to be the truth, we do declare it now and say together, and so it is.
And thank you, Miguel. And thank you, musicians, and thank you, Bob, and thank you, all of you, on that journey that we were just on. So I know that you were just taken into this space of somber energy. And so we're going to contradict that and take you up on some music now. So just allow that where you've been anchored, right, ladies and gentlemen? Yes. Right? And so they're going to want you to get up and dance. So hopefully you got that kind of kicked your kundalini in, so you're ready to dance a little bit. Ready? So am I correct? All right, so take it away.
All right. I'm hoping that you're ready to rock and roll a little bit here, okay? All right, let's get the band going. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm gonna groove a little bit first. Make sure you got it. You open your arms and
Hey, open up your heart, yeah, girl. You know what I was thinking during the end, right before you got to the end of that? You could do the electric slide to that. I don't remember the rest of it. We'll do it after we take collection. How about that? All right, Tina Meeks, Andy Belling, Peter Ransky, and Gaia Zule. Fantastic, thank you. See, I told you we were going to take you on a journey of your energy, right? Yeah, so how you feeling? All kind of balanced and serene and like anchored and kundalini flying at the same time? Good, well that takes us right into the first Sunday of the month of October 2018 here at the Center for Spiritual Living, where we kick off this month with a new theme, and the theme is living from your awakened self. Hey, does your self feel awake right now? Good, so today I'm going to talk about living from your awakened self, not just knowing that you have the capacity to do that, not just knowing that yourself is awakened, but living from that and building on what I talked about through the month of September, which was change your vibrations, change your life. And we just felt that vibrational shift take place in this room, which is a experience of what life is like for us if we are awakened to what's going on around us. Did anybody have a journey of vibrational shifts throughout the week? If you didn't, you're not awake. But this is a week for that. And if we remember what we've learned already in the month prior to September, in August, which I believe it was, the concept was awakening to your desires or something like that. And then we moved to change your vibrations, change your life, that Albert Einstein told us that every single thing is energy. Everything is energy. And if you want to match your vibrational frequency to the energy of that which you want in life, you will then manifest that into experience. He goes on to say, and I'm paraphrasing Albie there, he's saying that is because this isn't philosophy, it's physics. So it's the way it works, and that's what I was speaking of when I said earlier when we started this service around that we live in a universe that is governed by spiritual law, just as we live in a universe that's governed by physical law. I'm going to recap some of the stuff that we went over in the last month to build on the foundation to move into this month of living from your awakened self. Zig Ziglar told us that, oh my God, it sounded, I'm just going to move on. I'm not going to let that come out of my mouth. Zig Ziglar says that life is an echo. What you send out comes back. What you sow, you reap. What you give, you get. What you see in others exists in you. Remember, life is an echo. It always gets back to you. So give goodness. The Buddha tells us that what you think, you become. What you feel, as Tina was just singing about, you attract into your world. What you imagine, you create. But it's important for us to understand that in that creative process, we are not making anything. We're just revealing that which already exists in the mind of the divine or God, which is the same mind that is your mind and my mind. But what we're doing is we're tapping into that vibrationally in a way that brings it through us into an experience through those spiritual laws of the universe. The author Derek Rydell addresses it in this way: what you want in life is already here. In the unified field of pure potential, that everything you need to fulfill your greatest desire is already part of your being. But it can't come out until you align with it. So, let go of the obstructions to it and raise your vibration to the level at which it already exists. It's what Einstein told us. He's just giving it to us in more modern day terminology. What we're being told here is that we must raise our vibration to life, be consciously engaged on this journey of spiritual awakening, which will ultimately provide a mental space for us to be personally self-empowered. Now, does that sound like an easy task? Can be, if you choose for it to be easy. Does it sound like a fun task? Could be, if you choose for it to be fun. But what it does require, whether you want it or not, is vulnerability. It requires us to be vulnerable to the process of not only the unfolding of how our desires show up in life, but all that show up. It requires us to be vulnerable to embrace our state of mind when something shows up that in our belief system is completely contradictory to the possibility that it can be a reflection of who and what we are the last 7 days, right? So, but that doesn't mean that that spiritual truth isn't still true. But what is important for us to understand is that if we want to rise up in that field of conscious evolution as a spiritually awakened being, that we must consciously play a role in that evolutionary process. Well, how do we do that? Well, first is we must surrender to the reality that we must become vulnerable. In other words, we have to allow ourselves to go through the journey and to feel what's taking place, to process it as it's taking place, to react to it as it's taking place, to interact with it as it's taking place. But we get to choose how that looks for us on the journey. It's important for us to know before we dive into the vulnerability component to hear what Deepak Chopra wrote for us in regards to this process. I'm paraphrasing a bit. But first we have to intend, we have to set the intention to be vulnerable, to becoming awakened, ultimately becoming empowered. And he writes, inherent in every intention and desire is the mechanics for its fulfillment. Intention and desire in the field of pure potentiality have infinite organizing power. And when we introduce an intention into the fertile ground of pure potentiality, we put this infinite organizing power to work for us. What Deepak is telling us there is already within the mechanics of intention and desire is its fulfillment mechanically. That we don't need to get caught up into how or our intentions or our desires are going to be made manifest. We don't need to get caught up in how we're going to become awakened. We don't need to get caught up in how the law is going to bring forth through us in life a reflection of a higher state of mind and all of the physical components that go with that. Ours is to stay caught up in the what. To be focused on what is it that we desire. What is it that we want to intend to have as an experience? Ultimately, what is the state of mind that we want to bring to our life? And so others, then bringing into others' lives as well. Because remember, we don't just exist in physical form as an individualized state of the only thing that is. We are a physical individualized state of that. But in addition to that, we are a vibrational field that exists. It's as we talked about in the last month that prior to us entering a room, our vibrational frequency enters. Well, why is that? That is because life is an echo. That's because everything is energy. That's because there's only one thing ever taking place. So we must become vulnerable on this journey. But it's important for us to understand, since there is only one mind, and that everything that's ever thought in mind or can be thought already exists, is it may be incumbent upon us, as we say yes to becoming more vulnerable, is to look at how we believe that word is. What is the definition of the word vulnerable? Well, in traditional sense, the definition is being susceptible to physical or emotional attack or harm. Well, I don't know about you, but based on that definition, I have zero desire to become vulnerable. Right? Why? Because I personally in my life have had experiences that when I have been vulnerable, in other words, putting myself out there, the wholeness of me, the allness of me, it hasn't always been met with the greatest receptivity. And yet, as an awakened being, I know that I get to choose for that to not be my experience. So what I get to then also choose is to reframe the term vulnerability. I get to reframe it that I'm not going to move through life expecting harm or attack emotionally or personally, that I can choose a new framework for the word ultimately impacting my state of mind, ultimately impacting my consciousness, ultimately impacting my experience. And so from a metaphysical perspective, which is what we practice and teach here at the Center for Spiritual Living Los Angeles, let's look at vulnerability in a new way. Vulnerability is the core of all emotions and feelings. Let's take that in for a second. I didn't hear the word harm. I didn't hear the word abuse or attack. It's saying that it's the core of all emotions and feelings. And to feel is to be vulnerable. To believe vulnerability is weakness is to believe that feeling is weakness. To foreclose on our emotional life out of a fear that the cost will be too high is to walk away from the very thing that gives us purpose and meaning to living. So this definition is telling us that it is a requirement of us if we want to rise up onto the higher vibrational frequency of life itself, of reflecting our divinity, that we must embrace our emotions. We must embrace our feelings. We must be vulnerable, because that complete component of who we are is the very thing that gives us purpose and meaning to living. Now that's true for us whether we're aware of our awareness or not, but we are aware of our awareness. And so we know that also all of us, that at some point in our life when we have set the intention for life to be different than it has been, that it's shown up. For all of us, on some level, somewhere. Now you notice I didn't say for life to be better. Because once you start placing judgment on it, you're going down a slippery slope. Why is that? Because ultimately our goal in life isn't to live life from good or bad, but to live life from our awakened self. In other words, to live life from our acceptance of who we are as a divine being. To live life from a conscious place of expressing our divinity, our wholeness, our completeness, our perfection, our oneness. Our love, our light, our peace, our joy, our beauty, our wisdom. Our role in revealing those components of who we are, those qualities that are inherent within us, is to simply set the intention. It's not to sit back and diagram how it's going to show up. It's not to sit back and check into these boxes of what could possibly go wrong or even what could possibly go right. It's to step back and ask myself, what do I intend to be in life? How do I intend to show up? How do I intend to communicate at a human level? How do I intend to communicate from a divine perspective? How do I intend to see and know me, the full, complete expression of the only thing that is, which is God? And then to shut up and let it do its thing. Let the mechanics of that intention do its thing. And then bring us an experience. And we can look at it and go, wow, does that reflect my intention? And it may or it may not. But we then get to have the opportunity to look at it and go, wow, if that really is what my state of mind is, I guess I need to change my state of mind. Or, wow, I've done some great work on myself here. I'm not living from fear. I'm allowing myself to be vulnerable. So I want more of that. But it's important for us to look at life from a new perspective, from a new understanding of what an awakened self is. To set the intention. It's further written in the book, The Law of Intention and Desire by Deepak Chopra that I read from a moment ago, that he says, intention lays the groundwork for the effortless, spontaneous, frictionless flow of pure potentiality seeking expression from the unmanifest to the manifest. The only caution is that you use your intent for the benefit of mankind. Intention is the real power behind desire. Intent alone is very powerful because intent is desire without attachment to the outcome. Desire alone is weak because desire in most people is attention with attachment. He goes on to write, intention combined with detachment leads to a life-centered, present moment awareness. And when action is performed in present moment awareness, it's most effective. Your intent, he writes, is for the future, but your attention is in the present. As long as your attention is in the present, then your intent for the future will manifest because the future is created in the present. You must accept the present as is. That alone is a big charge. You must, he's saying. to become an awakened being, to live from a place of personal self-empowerment, you must accept the present as is and intend the future. Well, the future is something that you can always create, co-create, if you will, through detached intention. But you should never struggle against the present. What he's telling us is that if we're struggling in the present moment around what we think can possibly happen, we're setting up a state of mind that is already in friction. But we're being told here that intention lays the groundwork for the effortless, spontaneous, frictionless flow of pure potentiality, also known as God, also known as opportunity, also known as the infinite nature of life, to seek its expression from the unmanifest to the manifest. Now, we've heard something like that before when I gave you Ernest Holmes' definition of the word love, which is the self-givingness of spirit whose desire is to express, another word for that, manifest, itself and multiply, if you will. And the only way that it can do that is through you and through me. So what we're being told here is if we desire to express more of our divinity, we have to intend to do so. We can't just sit back and go, I know that I know that I know that I know. Well, that was a good vibration, so that'll work. That's not enough. We have to then step up and go, how do I feel in the Om? Well, I intend to spread that Om being a metaphor for Om is considered to be the vibrational frequency of the divine, then I intend to express that. I intend for it to multiply. And I intend to honor it when it returns back to me. That is living from your awakened self. Well, what does it mean to live an awakened life? Well, Dr. D. Shefali writes this. What does it mean to live an awakened life? What does it mean to be awakened? Have you thought about it? She writes. How do you define an awakened life? She goes on to write, for me, to live an awakened life requires a constant and consistent vigilance of the inner workings of the psyche. In other words, the mind. It's a constant vigilance of the inner workings of your mind. It requires a deep commitment to a moment-by-moment awareness of our inner emotional tapestry. So what does that mean, a moment-by-moment awareness? It means accepting the present as is, because then that moment passes. And then it's accepting the moment as is, and then that moment passes. And then allowing that to become the rhythm of your life. And then layer upon that, what are your intentions? Well, I intend to stay present in that moment by moment. My intentions are to vibrate at a high frequency. My intention is to feel my feelings. My intention is to be vulnerable and like it. My intention is to be vulnerable and invite you into it. My intention is to open my heart and honor your vulnerability when it's taking place. My intention is to let go of the past. Well, what is the past? Everything prior to now. Oh, I just need to let go of that now. And let go of that now. And that now. Because see, that's the rhythm. It's the rhythm of life. It's that as-is moment that's being required of us. That requires a practice. That's called a spiritual practice. But many of us have thought that a spiritual practice is going and sitting in a corner and doing our damned best to cross our legs and to sit upright, put our fingers in the right position and feel the Om inside, or close our eyes, or do a 5-step spiritual mind treatment, or a 7-step spiritual mind treatment, or an amen, or an and so it is, or whatever it is. And the minute you get caught up in all of that mess, you're detached. You're into friction. And yet what we're being told to live an awakened life is to let go of that. To just trust that you know that you can say, I am the power and the presence of the divine. I feel that because I know it's true. Wow, in that moment I feel awakened. Well, how do I feel awakened? As the self itself. The self of what? The self of the only thing that is. Wow, as I say that, I feel even more awakened. Well, how do I know I'm awakened? Because I see, not just with my human eyes, but the divine is seeing through me. Wow, that's frictionless, and that's pretty cool. That's being a conscious evolutionist. Well, how about all the crap from the week? Doesn't matter. It's dissolved and faded away. But the crap's going to show up again. It's probably going to show up this afternoon. How do you deal with it? Certainly going to show up when you turn on the television, or you read the newspaper, or you go to and have lunch with a friend or someone that you want to be a friend, and politically they disagree with you, spiritually they disagree with you, philosophically they disagree with you. They don't even like your hair. What are you going to do? Well, put it in perspective of what's unfolding. My dear friend, Dr. Pat Campbell, addressed this way. She lives in Canada now, so she's a bit detached from the everyday activities of what's going on in our country, but yet she's a U.S. citizen, so she's still engaged. And I read this yesterday, and it was a huge healing for me. And I feel compelled to share it with you from the perspective of understanding our role as a mental scientist in the evolution of not only our country, but our humanity. And she says, like many, I'm upset and unsettled by all that has happened in the world of U.S. politics by the past few weeks. Mostly, what I'm upset about is how utterly divisive it all is. I'm reading posts from all sides that make me want to cry. It's just so ugly. However, the divisiveness didn't start with one person, one event, or even one election. It is deep, and it is profound. It's also happening in other parts of the world. There's an old-time metaphysical term called chemicalization. Simply put, when a new idea is coming into fruition, everything unlike it bubbles up to be healed or dissolved. It can be ugly, hurtful, and ultimately necessary. I keep this in mind, she writes, when my stomach is in knots, a lump forms in my throat, and I want to scream at the powers that be. Anybody been there? I trust and know that I do live in a friendly universe that is here for me despite appearances. In the words of Julian of Norwich, all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. In the meantime, she says, I pray. I do my own internal work to heal the divisiveness within me. What she's saying is that these times that we're living in today, they're a-changing. And we may like it, and we may not like it. But what hasn't changed is our ability to change our state of mind. What hasn't changed is our ability to impact what's going on in our world. What hasn't changed is that deep within each and every one of us is the same power that exists within all sentient beings. All sentient beings. Whether they like your hair, whether they enjoy being at lunch with you, whether you enjoy being at lunch with them, or that they've done things or said things that have either broken your heart or really disillusioned you or saddened you. It's all there already. But you get to choose. You get to choose. Are you going to approach life from a state of awakenedness, or are you going to go deeper and deeper and deeper into the darkness, which is your darkness? What I learned in this teaching long ago is that as long as I choose to live from the world of effect, my life will be governed from the world of effect. But since I'm awakened and I know that I have the ability and the capacity to rise above it mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and let go of why anything is showing up, and trust that it's simply the rhythm of life itself, and that I have the ability and the capacity to impact change for good in the world, good not as a judgment, good as a synonym for God, then I'm empowered. I'm empowered to use the power within me to impact my world, ultimately the world, because they're synonymous. So today I invite you to ask yourself, what is divisive within yourself that is preventing you from living your life as awakened as possible? And not look at it as something that's bad or even unnecessary, But look at it from the perspective that it is just simply the chemicalization of the dissolution and the dissolving of that in your life that is contrary to your divine nature. And face it. Be vulnerable enough to face it. Because in facing it and embracing it, you then create the space for it to return to the creative ethers of the universe. And by choosing a state of mind that reflects who you are as a divine being, that it must return to you in like form. Because remember, life is an echo. You get what you give, and you reap what you sow. So choose to sow oneness. Choose to sow love. Choose to give the self-givingness of spirit to yourself, first and foremost. And let the law of life take care of the rest. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to welcome back Tina and Guy and Pete and Andrew. They're going to continue this journey on a musical journey, and I believe they have a few words to share with you prior to... Did you forget that part?
You love putting people on the spot. Well,
Be vulnerable, honey.
I would say that the song that I'm going to sing has to do with someone who is awakening, going through that process, and realizing what it's going to take to be vulnerable and discover.
But I know
will be